Hello, I'm Stuart McNish, and you're listening to Conversations Live. Conversations Live is a long-form public affairs dialogue series addressing the big issues of our time. For each episode, we bring together subject matter experts for a deep conversation designed to provide you with information that helps you make more informed decisions. I hope you enjoy it. Pete Hoekstra, the new American ambassador to Canada, joins me today to talk about a number of the issues affecting the relationship between the United States and Canada. Welcome to Conversations Live. Today we come to you from Kem-Kemalé, the land of many maples. These are the traditional territories of the Musqueam, Tsleil-Waututh, and Squamish First Nations who have lived on and continue to call these lands home. OCM. Conversations Live is a long-form public affairs dialogue series that seeks to advance our understanding of the big issues of our times. Our goal is to share ideas and insights that help each of us gain a greater understanding of our communities, our province, our country. We work in association with Mario Canseco of Research Co., and our media partner is the Vancouver Sun. Live streaming services are provided by Oh Boy Productions. Our topic today is Canada's relationship with the United States. So just before we start, Mario Canseco of Research Co. has conducted a poll for us on Canadians' current feelings about the state of our relationship with our biggest and most important ally and trading partner. Can you please roll that tape?
In January, before Donald Trump took office as President of the United States for the second time, and before the start of discussions related to tariffs, we asked Canadians about their expectations for his second term in office. Only about a third of Canadians expected Trump's tenure to have a positive effect on the world, Canada, and their province, while about 3 in 5 thought his presidency would be negative. Canada-US relations has been at the top of the list of concerns for Canadians since March 2025, just before the early federal election was called. While the number of Canadians who are primarily worried about Canada-US relations dropped by 8 points in our last survey, conducted earlier this month, the topic remains ahead of the economy, housing, and healthcare in the minds of Canadians. When the latest findings are analyzed by age, Canadians who are part of the silent generation or baby boomers, those born before 1965, are significantly more likely to be concerned about Canada-US relations than their younger counterparts. Members of Generation X place more emphasis on the economy and jobs, while Millennials and Generation Z are particularly worried about housing. Since the dispute over tariffs began in February, fewer than 1 in 4 Canadians have told us they are not taking any measures to avoid American products. More than a third have canceled planned trips to the United States, while slightly fewer are avoiding American entertainment options. In addition, 3 in 5 Canadians say they are not buying goods originated from the United States if a non-American alternative is available. In April 2025, fewer than 3 in 10 Canadians expressed positive views on the United States. The finding represented a significant drop from the all-time high observed in January 2024, when almost 2/3 of Canadians had a favorable opinion of the United States. The previous low was registered in July 2020 at the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. The latest survey outlines a unique situation, with Canadians being more likely to express positive views on Venezuela, India, Saudi Arabia, and China than on the United States. For Conversations Live, I'm Mario Canseco from Research Co.
Well, Ambassador Hoekstra, welcome.
Good to be here. Thank you.
Canadians are a little upset at the moment. You've even described the relationship as a bit battered and bruised. But really, when you take a look at it in its whole, how do you describe the nature of our relationship at this point in time?
I mean, I spent 4 days here now in, this northwest region of, northwest of the, in the U.S., I guess southwest when I get into part of Canada, when I get into British Columbia. These are two countries that are knitted together. All right, they're knitted together economically. They're knitted together in terms of national security, personal, and we are tied together most people that I talked to over the last 4 days, and that's why I love going down and doing these types of things. They're looking forward. Okay, they're saying we got to get things done, and the views might be a little bit different than those numbers, but the bottom line is they see a very strong relationship.
Well, it's a long one, and it's had many bumps along the way. And I note in your remarks from the other day, suggest that you think that where we're going to come out of this will be stronger. How do you come to that conclusion?
We're still going to have the longest, undefended border in the world. We are still going to have an integrated auto industry where in Ontario you can make a part in the morning. And in the afternoon, it's going to be leaving an assembly plant in Detroit, headed to one of our dealerships, maybe either in the U.S. or Canada. We are still going to be working together on national security issues. Those things are not going to change. The boundaries and the parameters of how that relationships work may be slightly altered. But the bottom line is we are still going to be working on those issues and those issues together. I expect us to be much stronger in the future than what we are today. We're going to grow this business. We're going to grow these economic opportunities. We're going to fight the challenges that we have on national security. We're going to do that if we want to be effective. We're going to do it together. We're going to fight fentanyl. We're both losing too many people. It's not an American, a U.S. issue. It's not a Canadian issue. It is a North American issue. We are both losing too many people each and every year to fentanyl.
Well, going back to when the president was still president-elect, he immediately issued a note on Truth Social saying, unless you clean up your act with regards to fentanyl, we're imposing tariffs. I mean, that was one of the first points that he started to make. Are you paying attention to fentanyl? Canada listened. Are you happy with what we've done as far as our initial moves to start to address the fentanyl issue?
I think America is very encouraged by some of the things, but there are other things that we believe can be done. The bottom line is, just like the president has gone to our southern border, okay, we took an unmanaged open border and in less than 90 days, the president and his team reduced that by 95, 98%. There have been improvements on fentanyl, but there's other things that the president and his team believe can be done, that should be done. So we're making progress, but we haven't made the same significant amount of progress on the fentanyl issue that we have on some other issues.
Is the White House paying particular attention to what is happening in British Columbia with regards to fentanyl? Because I think in British Columbia we are not a problem as far as fentanyl is concerned in the United States. Is that the view from the White House?
Well, what we see is it's not a British Columbia issue. We see this as a North American issue. We know that a lot of the precursor chemicals come in from China. They may come in through Canada. They may go in through Mexico. But they still want to get them to North America. We see that some of the materials come in from Mexico, but these are being done by the cartels. And these are flexible organizations. And as we seal the border on the south, we know that they're looking for other ways to get that stuff into the U.S. It may be along the water, along our coastline, Pacific coastline, maybe through the Gulf of America, or maybe through Canada. They're going to be flexible, and they're going to keep poking at finding the vulnerabilities. So we need a strong partner. Not only in BC, but in all of Canada to provide the protections. And the goal and the objective, we're worried about, and the president's very concerned about American lives that are being lost, but he's also very concerned about Canadian lives that are being lost. And so, the objective, I think, that we could have as countries that we could work together on, let's make this a fentanyl-free zone, America and Canada.
Does fentanyl become a national security issue in the sense that it disrupts economies to a large extent because of the damage that it poses?
Yeah, we lose some of our best and brightest. Absolutely.
So when it comes to the border, of course, at the same time that President Trump-elect was issuing his statements about fentanyl, he was also asking us to tighten up our border. We've responded. And I'm sort of going through a few of these things because I want to get to the point where I go, so we were responding in a way that we were hoping that we were going to get most favored nation status. So as far as the border is concerned, Prime Minister Carney has stepped up and said, okay, we're taking measures. And I believe even Premier Danielle Smith from Alberta, said she's even going to step out ahead of the federal government and start to increase border security. Are we moving in the right direction?
Absolutely. Nobody said that you're not. We're encouraged by some of the steps that you've taken. There's other things that, that you've done that we're very encouraged by. Hallelujah. Canada has now, committed to being a full partner on NATO as we see the global threats moving from, 1.3, 1.5, whatever the number is, but, significantly below the 2% target, and a clear commitment from the Carney administration that says we're going to hit the 3.5 and the 1.5, and we're going to move to 5%, and we'll be at the 2% by the end of, I believe, this, Canada's fiscal year. And it's like, great, what NATO has done, we're saving that institution. When I was in the Netherlands, the Dutch they were not very big on NATO either, and they say, because 2017, 18, what were people saying? Donald Trump wants to quit NATO, right? That was the narrative, and it's kind of like, no, we're not quitting NATO. We're putting in our full percentage plus more. The question that we as an administration had at that time, and the president said, and I asked the Dutch, and they would kind of look at me and say, the question that the president asked is, what do you guys know about NATO that we don't, that leads you to believe that you shouldn't invest in NATO? We're investing in NATO. You're not. Why aren't you investing in NATO? Together now, with the Canadians as a partner, I think we're putting the funding behind NATO to create a strong deterrent, which will bring stability and peace in the long run to much of the world. We are a force for good with Canada and like-minded countries.
So part of that strategic alliance, of course, includes Canada's northern border, which Russia is our northern border, you're our southern border. How important is it that our Prime Minister is now making commitments to bolster security there? And what does that also say about the NORAD agreement between the two countries?
NORAD's been a very, very successful agreement. The actual elements of NORAD need to be updated. The Canadians have made a commitment to do that. NORAD will continue to be a very important element of that security arrangement. There's now talks going on between the president and your prime minister about Golden Dome, another opportunity to strengthen the security alliance and create an environment of security and safety for the Canadian people and the American people.
So not so much in the present months, but part of this strategic alliance, we started to hear the president talk about wanting to take over Greenland. Was that part of a move to bolster a strategic defensive alliance to prevent Russian aggression?
Well, when the president's sitting in this chair, you can ask him about his strategic intent and interest in Greenland. There's no doubt that if you're talking about protecting the northern environment of Canada and the United States, where Greenland plays an important role in that. Okay, so identifying that, and I think the president identified that in his last administration, that the importance of Greenland to the security of the United States and by extension also to Canada.
Do you think that the discussion around Canada as a 51st state is now beyond us?
I don't know. That's something. If the president wants to talk about the 51st state, he can do that. If Mark Carney wants to talk about the 51st state, this is above my pay grade. The president has, clearly provided the direction to us as ambassadors. His priorities. We're working on things that are going to make America more prosperous, that increases the security and the safety of Americans, and those are the things that Pete, I need you working on, and that's what our embassy in Ottawa and our consulates around the country, those are the things that we are focused on, bringing prosperity, security, and safety to the American people. And I believe by extension, when we are achieving those objectives in America, you will be achieving the same kind of results in Canada.
So as we discussed, we are already starting to move in some of those directions that the White House would like to see us
Yes.
move in. And so I think it becomes a bit of a surprise to Canadians saying, okay, we get a lot of what you're saying and we're moving in that direction, and yet you still keep coming at us about tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. Now, I also think that there's a lot of confusion around tariffs. Like, we're talking about products that are outside of the CUSMA or USMCA agreement. But it's still targeting Canadian sectors and some businesses. And so there is a reaction. How do we deal with that?
Well, you deal with it however you want. That's
Yeah.
a Canadian decision. That's not mine. You need to recognize that the president, we had some challenges that we needed to face. We needed to face the issue of the president wanted to bring economic prosperity and rapid growth to America. It's the best way for us to deal with a second major issue, which is our debt and deficit. So a tax bill which brings prosperity to the American people, the dealing of prosperity to the American people, a bigger economy. The biggest beneficiary is the federal government because tax revenues go like this. Don't know exactly how that works in Canada.
Same way.
Okay. And so, he's put those in place. And part of that plan also was we're going to impose tariffs, not on Canada, on every single trading partner around the world. So it's not targeted specifically at Canada, but at the same time, there's not a specific carve out that says, well, Canada's kind of a really unique and special place. So, we're going to do it to everybody except Canada.
So there's been quite a reaction, and you know it, of course. You take a look at the Premier of British Columbia. He's not happy, and he's not happy even about some of the things that were mentioned the other day, where you reported that the president said, okay, you want to boycott our products, you don't want to come down. You don't have to be mean and nasty like that. And so it's creating tension, and how do we get beyond that?
I quoted what the president said, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago, where I think he described the negotiations, the Canadians and the Canadian negotiations on, where we're moving forward. He said, that's mean and nasty. I'm just reporting what the president said. I didn't say anything new. And you can take the comments, again, however you want. Okay. But that's how Americans and as the negotiators are reporting back to Trump on the progress on these types of things, President Trump said, that sounds kind of mean and nasty. Okay.
So we're days away from the deadline on a trade agreement. And I note from one of the questions from one of our viewers, and also comments that you made the other day, we'll get through these negotiations and we'll then have a clearer understanding of where we're at. Where do we go from here?
Well, Canada will go where it wants to go, okay? Where your prime minister and your premiers lead Canada. I think that from my perspective and America's perspective, we've got a phenomenal relationship. Take a look at what's happening here, in British Columbia and, dealing with the state of Washington and Oregon and, this whole economic region, okay? I talked to the folks about, this region is going to host the greatest sporting event of 2026.
Yeah.
Okay. They're not worried about the news up here. The people at BC Place have one thing on their mind. On June 13, we are going to be hosting a game here in Vancouver, and we need to be ready. And we are talking to our counterparts in Seattle up here to make sure, we're doing all of the right things. I talk to our border people. We're talking, and what do they say? We're talking to the Canadians, and we're talking to ourselves and each other to make sure that, when these games start, we can process people across the border sufficiently so there's not 5-hour lines across the border. So that's what they're doing. You talk to the business community, you talk to your mining community, Microsoft, and all of those types of things. They're not talking about, they're talking about, we've got this integrated network of doing business with people on the other side of the border. And you know what? We're continuing to move forward with that. And we all have plans to invest and grow that relationship. That I think that will continue.
Well, I agree. The integration between the states in the U.S. and Canada and Alberta just around energy. There's 11 states and 2 provinces that are interdependent upon one another. That agreement isn't going to go away. Do you see that that we're going to be able to continue to make sure that both sides of the border are satisfied with their energy needs?
I sure hope so. I mean, again, at the regional conference, what was it? If you're talking about mining and then, refining, what does it take? Energy, okay? We need critical minerals, okay? And that's going to take a lot of energy. Artificial intelligence, data centers, they consume huge amounts of energy. So, if we're going to lead in artificial intelligence, we need that energy. And so, they're all focused not on, again, what's going on at 30,000 feet. They're all talking about how do we make sure we produce enough energy and we get it to the right places with transmission. This is not just, these are very complicated problems. And they're all saying, we got to do this together. Okay. And that's why I'm very bullish and I'm passionate about this Canadian-American relationship. Okay.
You brought up the issue of critical minerals, and we know that most of that processing of critical minerals right now goes to Asia, and in particular China.
Yeah.
What can we do collectively to bring that processing and those markets back to North America?
Well, we got to do more of the refining. Okay, we extract this out of Canada. We can refine it and turn it into finished products. We can create prosperity and jobs on both sides of the border and figure out how we're going to refine this stuff and how we're going to turn it into finished products. It's a great partnership that we do and have done on so many other industries for years.
So what would that partnership look like? And I ask that because your predecessor was here in this same chair last year talking about Canada doesn't have the scale to be able to bring about the processing that's needed to supply the North American market. How do we work together to make that happen?
It's the same. We've built successful technologies and successful industries across the board already. We're knitted together on technology. Okay, I met with Microsoft down in the state of Washington, and they've got a Microsoft building here in Vancouver.
Right.
Okay, they've got a lot of jobs. I met with our defense industry folks in Ottawa just before I came out here. And what do they all talk about? They talk about their presence in Canada. Okay, Canada's deciding whether they're going to buy F-35s or not. All right, they put it on hold. It's kind of like, well, that's kind of interesting. Canada invested $200 million in the design and the development of the F-35. Every F-35 built today, I believe, has Canadian components in it. And if Canada wants to go and buy from some European vendors where they make no parts for the finished product, that's a Canadian decision. I don't think it's a very smart one, especially because, okay, we're going to go buy some planes from Europe where we have no content. It's not interoperable. It's not interchangeable with our friends down south. That's your decision. That's not ours.
So if we're looking at investment into critical mineral processing, do you foresee an opportunity for the Canadian and American governments to work together to help to support that? Or do you believe that it should really only happen through the private sector?
Well, we already have U.S. government defense investments into mining companies in Canada for critical minerals. We're already partnering and saying, okay, for certain of these things, we will invest in opportunities. The U.S. government will invest. As a conservative, what do I really believe? The more we can do that through the private sector, the more efficient, the more effective we will be in designing these systems. But when I met with your mining folks this week, again, what are they saying? They're all looking at massive investments, right, on both sides of the border. But at the same time, they're also, kind of nudging along and saying, some of these are huge projects, somewhat risky. We may need to have some type of U.S. government or federal or Canadian government support to make these things happen. I think we're fully open to looking at those kinds of partnerships.
So one of the interesting partnerships that is very regional, but it still touches on Canada-U.S. relations, is the Columbia River Energy Treaty.
Yep.
And it is in limbo right at the moment, not because of anything that President Trump is doing, but it didn't get ratified under the Biden administration. And now Canadians are going, well, where do we go?
Yeah. Well, we have a new administration. You have a new administration in Canada. We are reviewing all of these kinds of arrangements that were there at the end of the Biden administration, weren't ratified. So we're just doing an internal review of those to say, are these consistent with the goals and objectives of the new administration? There's an interim agreement in place right now to manage this process. I expect that we will move forward. I don't know if there'll be any tweaks to that agreement, but again, it is an agreement that has worked well for years, and every once in a while it may be tweaked or whatever, but there's a process in place right now to manage it, and then as we're reviewing it, and then there will be a process in place to finalize it, get it in front of the U.S. Senate, and have a long-term agreement again.
Yeah, a shared sector that we have are salmon. Vital to the Pacific Northwest, vital to us. Mm-hmm. And there's been remarkable agreements.
Yep.
But there has been a move by the White House now to say we're shutting down NOAA facilities that would affect that. Do you foresee that we're going to be able to continue to work together in the preservation of the salmon themselves and the sector?
Yeah. I mean, the president's also going through a review of, we have to fix our deficit problem, okay? There were duplicative and inefficient government organizations. We're streamlining that process. Doesn't mean that we've changed priorities. Preservation of natural resources, the environment, and things like salmon. There are a lot of Americans who make their livelihood off of salmon. Absolutely, we will have in place a process to protect that, recognizing that we want to partner with Canada because it's an important industry to both of us. And that treaty comes up in 2026, I believe. And at that point in time, you can expect a full engagement with the U.S. to review that.
I'm just going to take a quick look here. The opposition, any other questions? Given existing, well, this is from viewers.
Yeah,
right
no,
now
that's
that are
right.
watching right now.
Absolutely.
Given existing trade concerns and the challenging economic environment between Canada and the U.S., what would you hope to see 1 year from now? And to what extent do you think you'll be able to contribute to ensuring that we have a strong trading relationship?
I hope that my office in Washington, in Ottawa, is just flooded with proposals from Canadian companies wanting to invest in the United States of America, and is also swamped with requests from American companies saying, we're going to have a partnership with in Canada, and we're going to bring prosperity, security, and peace. Stability to both countries. I mean, there's an interesting example right now. Nuclear. Okay? Nuclear, you guys have uranium.
We have uranium.
You refine it. Right now, you don't enrich it you don't take it to refine it to the point where you can use it in a power plant. Okay?
Right.
There's a question whether Canada will ever get there. But the next step is both America and Canada are committed to nuclear energy. Okay?
Well, going back to your point about artificial intelligence and data centers and on and on and on, the need for electricity.
Yeah, and we're both talking about SMRs and all of these types of things. So the enrichment of the uranium, right now it's done 3 places primarily: Russia, China, and some in the EU. We used to be the largest.
Okay? We're not doing it.
In the U.S., we're not doing it. We think we ought to be doing it in North America. Canada will have to make its own decision on enrichment, but that supply chain. It may be the most natural place to do that will be in the U.S. And then just like for the material, the uranium, there's markets on north and south of the border. There will be markets north and south of the border for enriched uranium because we're both building nuclear plants. Mm-hmm. Okay? Great opportunity for partnership.
I just want to end on a note where I saw you the other day saying, I'm not hearing businesses tell positive stories about the relationship right now. Why is that important from your perspective, that start to happen?
Because this is, someone asked me today, give us the one word to sort of, give us the phrase, that describes it. It's because at lunch some folks said, we're a family. And it's kind of like, no, we're not a family. Okay, you're a sovereign nation, we're a sovereign nation. That's not a family. Okay, that didn't work for me. But as I said, but that's really good. We ought to come up with a phrase because in the marketing world, 30 years ago, I worked with Newt Gingrich and we came up with the concept, the contract with America. Okay, very powerful marketing concept, enabled Republicans for the first time in 40 years to take control of the House of Representatives. And as we were talking about it this afternoon, it's like, how do you describe this? And like I said, it's a knitted, it's a knitted relationship on so many different issues. And people ought to be added. This relationship between Canada and the U.S. has brought peace to North America for a long time. We landed on D-Day together. Canadians and Americans, along with the Poles and the Brits, liberated my parents in the Netherlands. The Canadians actually were the ones that, they were the ones as they were, as the Allies were going up the east side of the Netherlands, some of them turned to the right to go into Germany, some turned to the left to go into the Netherlands and liberate the Netherlands. Those were the Canadians. You had fought the Battle of the Scheldt. We spilled blood together. So this fabric is really, really important to me. And I think it describes our relationship in so many different places. And we need people advocating for that. Right now, we've got too many people. You had 2 political parties that ran basically anti-American campaigns. So I think this fabric is a stretch fabric. You can stretch it and strain it in certain ways. I don't want people going in and getting the scissors and start cutting it, because that's really, really hard to repair. Bruised, we can recover from that, but don't start cutting it. Advocate for it, because this relationship has brought us, prosperity and stability to both sides of the border, and that's what we need to be focused on.
Good note to end on. Thank you for your time.
Hey, great. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll see you next month for Conversations Live, investing in Canada in partnership with First Nations. Thank you for tuning into Conversations Live, an Oh Boy Productions program. If you enjoyed this conversation, you can find our previous and upcoming episodes at conversationslive.ca. You can also follow us on YouTube, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Facebook. Again, thank you. I'm Stuart McNish.